Good night, everyone. Welcome to the Quality Stars New York webinar on the portal. I hope everyone can hear me. You are in listen-only mode, so you cannot be heard, but hopefully you can hear me and you can also see my screen. You should be seeing on my screen the Quality Stars New York website. Just a few things before we start the webinar. So my name is Ola Friday. I am the project coordinator for Quality Stars New York. I will be leading the webinar tonight. I'll be going through how to access and navigate through the portal and how to upload your documentation. So the portal is how we provide the information for the standard self-study into Quality Stars New York. The good thing about the portal is that it allows you to see an approximation of the number of points you might receive in Quality Stars New York. So it gives you some feedback along the way, so you'll see how many points you've been accumulating, so that when you're officially rated, hopefully it won't be too much of a surprise. But I'll show you all of that in a minute. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. I am recording the webinar because we will be posting it to the website. So if you want to come back and view the webinar, you can do that at a later date. Also, I'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. I'll pause after every screen to see if there are any questions, and we can answer those questions. There is a little chat box in GoToWebinar that allows you to input a question if you have it. And I see that we already might have some questions. So this is where we communicate. So if you have any trouble seeing my screen or hearing what I'm saying, just send me a note in the question or chat box, and I should be able to see it. Let me write everyone a message so that we can be sure that this is working. Okay, I just sent out a message, so hopefully everyone has seen that message. I see that I have gotten a few comments, so let me just look at that before we get started. Okay, so I'm going to proceed. Again, if you cannot hear me or see my screen, please let me know. Okay? But I'm going to go ahead. So again, you should be looking at the Quality Stars New York website. So this is where you can access the portal in case you don't know the exact portal address. And again, the portal is where you created your application to participate in Quality Stars New York, and it's also where you would now submit your standard self-study. Okay, so from the home page, you just scroll down and there should be a message here that the online portal for center-based programs and family providers is now live. So you would just click on this hyperlink in the message and it should take you there. I'm just going to close out something. So I was logged in before, so I'm actually going to log out to show you how you would log in. So by clicking on the hyperlink, you should now arrive here. Welcome to the WELS portal. So this is the data system for Quality Stars New York. And it should look familiar to you if you did apply to participate through the portal. And so you would use the same information that you used to apply to participate. So you click on Login. If for some reason you did not create a login before, then you would click on Sign Up. But I'm going to click on Login to enter my information. Okay, so now it's asking me for my email address, which is my username. So I'm going to go ahead and input that. and my password. Now, if for some reason you cannot remember your password, you can click here to reset it and a temporary password will be sent to you. You can always, at a later date, then change that temporary password. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click Login, and it should take me into the portal. Okay, so the first screen you see is Sites and Activities. Okay, and there are various tabs here, so let's just go through them. The first tab is Training, which is really just information on Quality Stars New York and using the portal. So this is where you can access an overview of Quality Stars New York. It's a brief presentation, so you can just click to view that presentation. You can also access the portal user guide here. This is very helpful because the user guide has all of the screens and it has language about how to navigate the screens and helpful tips. So I do encourage you to take a look at the user guide before you even attempt to start completing your standard self-study. And then there's also overview of the WELL system. If you'd like to know more information about our data system, you could look at that as well. Okay, the second tab is Application. So this is actually the application that you created and submitted to apply to participate in Quality Stars New York. So you can always go into your application and view it, and you can see what you did submit a few months ago. But the tab we're most interested in today is the Self-Study tab. So I'm going to click on that. And what you should see is the list of your site, so your provider name, or if you have a program name, you would see that there. And then you would click on Start a Self-Study. Now, I've already edited my self-study, so that's why you see Edit Self-Study here. Okay, I'm just going to see if there are any questions before I go into a self-study. Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'm going to proceed. Again, at the end of the webinar, I'll open the phone line so we can take some questions as well. So I'm going to go into my self-study. I'll click on Edit or Start a Self-Study. And you see here that it also has my license or permit number, the self-study date. This is just the date that I first opened the self-study, and then the status of it. Now the status will change once you submit the self-study. So I click Edit Self-Study. So now I'm in the self-study wizard. The wizard is just basically a series of screens, and I can navigate from screen to screen using the left-hand vertical column here, or I can click on Next to go to the next screen. I'll click on Next, so that will take us to site information. Okay, now some of the information will already be there from your license, so all of this should look familiar to you: the name, license number, your license capacity, and the address. But we are asking for some additional information, so just go ahead and input your phone number so we can contact you. Now, I'm just going to put in some play information because this is not an actual provider who's participating in Quality Stars New York, so I'm not going to mess up her information in any way. Okay, and then you just put in your email address again. The owner, if that's you, go ahead and put in your name again. If it's someone else, you can put in their name. Okay, and then the hours of operation. So let's say 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the days of the week that you provide care. So I'm just going to check off what applies. Okay. The next field asks for hours per week worked by staff that equal full-time status at your site. This is more of a question for programs, so group family child care providers who have a number of assistants. We would need that information. But if it's just one provider, you can also put in the number of hours that you work a week. And we need this information so that we can accurately calculate the number of points for you and your staff in qualifications and experience. So whatever this means at your site, for some folks it might be 35 hours or 40. I'm sure a lot of you work a lot more than that, so you would put in the number of hours. But again, really it's about your staff. So whatever constitutes full-time status for your staff, the minimum number, not necessarily the maximum that they work. And then the next asks for the primary language. So we have a few options here. So you can select that. I'm going to select English. The self-study date, this is the date that you actually start the self-study. So we ask that you don't change that date. And then the provider open date, this is the date that you first started providing care. And so we just want to get a sense of how long you've been in the business of providing child care. Not necessarily under your current license, but as a family provider. So for example, I know some of you might start as a family provider and then move to group family after a number of years, so then your license changes, the number changes. So we're most interested in when did you first start providing care in your home. Okay, so just enter approximately what that date was. So I'm just going to put in January 1, 1999. The next series of questions just asks about your program type. So if you're family, group family, I'll select family. And then we need to know about the types of children that you serve. So if you serve infants and toddlers, children with special needs, children whose home language is not English, and other. So here you can input school age if you like, but it's not necessarily to select other. Okay, and then the next list asks for program attributes. So if you're affiliated with a faith-based institution, or if you are if you provide Head Start, if you're contracted to provide Head Start, any type of affiliation that you have, you would just select that here. Of course, a number of you are for-profit, so you can certainly select that if you like. Okay. Before I move on, let me see if there are any questions about the site information screen. Okay, so there is a question. The start date, is that informal or registered or certified? So again, let me just go up to, I believe the question is about provider open date. So again, this is just the date that you started providing care in your home. We need to get a sense of how long you've been in the business of providing family child care. Okay. So let's go to the next page. So I click on Next. Okay, this screen asks about the staff roster. So here you would input the names of anyone who works in your family daycare. So you would start with your name. You have to put in at least one name in order to move through the standard self-study. So I just put in your name. And the position. let's say this is, well, let's say it's a family child care. And then the hire date, again, this is just the date when you first started. An approximation is fine. The termination date, that doesn't really apply to us at this time, so just ignore that. And then you would click Insert to save this information. Okay, and you see that now Robin has been saved. Let's say that Robin has an assistant provider, so we want to enter her name or his name. And then again, you would select the position. So here I would select assistant provider and the hire date. Let's say 2010. And again, no termination date. And then insert. Okay, so now my 2 staff are listed. Let's see if there are any questions about the staff page before I continue. Okay, I don't see any questions about this page, so I'll go ahead. So I click on Next to go to the next page. So this takes me to the qualifications and experience section of the self-study. And so this is where you can put in some summary information so you can get a sense of how you and your staff, if there are any, would get points. So I know all of you have been putting your information into Aspire, and we thank you so much. But Aspire is now in the process of verifying all of that information, and it's a lot of information. So unfortunately, we're not able to show you your Aspire information here. So instead, we're asking that you, based on the knowledge that you have of your credentials and your qualifications and your staff, that you put in just some summary information so that you can get a sense of the number of points that you would earn in this category, qualifications and experience. Okay, and so you see that here the number of providers is 1. This is pre-populated from my staff roster, where I indicated that I had 1 provider. So this is automatic here, and what that means is that you're only able to put in information for 1 provider. Okay, the system won't allow you to put in more than 1. And I'll go through and show you how we generate these points in the system. So the first section talks about administrative training. So this is getting a sense of a provider's background in management, leadership, supervision, or administration. So what's your training in terms of managing a business? And so here we're asking about college credits or clock hours. So you would input that information. Now, since I've already played around in the system, you see here that I already have 1 staff, so my 1 provider has 3 to 5 college credits in management, supervision, leadership, and/or administration. But let's say that I meant to say that my provider had 6 to 8 college credits. So let me go ahead and change this. So to change this, or to edit the information, click on Edit. I'm going to delete my 1 and put in a 0 and click Update. Okay, so now you see I have no points earned here. So now I want to give the provider 6 to 8 college credits. So I go to the next standard and I click on Edit. And now I change that 0 to a 1 and click Update to save. So now you see that I've generated 9 points for my provider for having 6 to 8 college credits in management. And now we ask that you only select the highest level earned. So, if you have 6 to 8 college credits, then yes, you also have 3 to 5, but we're asking for the highest number here. So you're only able to put in this 1 in one place. So let me show you what happens if I wanted to say that I also had 3 to 5 college credits. So I edit. I try to change my 0 to a 1 and I click update, but I get an error message that the number of staff cannot be greater than 1. Okay, because again it's asking for the highest level earned. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that 1 to a 0 and update. Okay, now the next section asks about administrative experience. So at least 3 years of experience in supervision or management in an early kin education program. Now again, this could be in your family daycare home, or it can be if you had previously worked in a center or taught. So it's all of your administrative experience. Supervising. If you were a director of a child care center before, that would count here. So I'll go ahead and say edit. And I'll change my 0 to a 1 and update to save. Okay. So now you see that I've earned 2 points for meeting that standard. Now the next section asks about qualifications in general. And again, here we're asking about the highest qualification that you've earned. And so what you want to do here is just make earn the most number of points. So let's go through the list and see. So first we talk about CDAs, and you can earn 23 points for having a CDA. Or you can have a Montessori credential. We recognize American Montessori, International Montessori, any Montessori. And you can earn 28 points for having that. If you have the New York State Infant Toddler credential or the New York State Family Child Care credential, you can earn 31 points. And then again, 9 college credits or more, and then we talk about higher education degrees. So let's say, for example, that I'm a provider who has an associate's degree, but I also have my CDA. What I'm going to do is only choose the associate's degree option because I earn more points for having an associate's degree. Okay? So you would input the 1 for whatever qualification earns you the most points. So I'm going to go ahead and just edit out the 9 college credits. Let's say that was a mistake. So I want to edit, put in 0, and update. And now I want to say that I have an associate's degree. So I'll click edit. And enter 1 and update. So now I've earned 38 points for my associate's degree. And again, I'll show you the error that will occur if I try to enter another qualification in this section of qualification. Okay, so let's say that I forget, but I want to indicate that I also have a CDA. So I change that to a 1 and I try to update, but I get an error message that the number of staff cannot be greater than 1. So again, your highest qualification is or the qualification that will earn you the most points is what you want to enter here. Okay, because we understand that all of these have value, but you want to earn the most number of points possible. So now I'll go to the next section that asks about credentials. And here we're really talking about teaching certifications. So if you have a teaching certificate, you can enter that here. We talk about birth to grade 2, but we do recognize N to 6 or earlier versions of the early childhood teaching certifications. And then if you have the family development credential, you can earn 5 points for having that. So you would enter that here. And then we ask about 3 years of experience teaching in an early care and education program. So this is not about being a provider and leading, managing a business or supervising staff. This is about being a provider who actually provides care and teaches young children, or if you were teaching in another setting, that would also count. So I'll go ahead and edit this. And update to save. So you see here that at the bottom I've now earned, as a provider, 52 points in qualifications and experience. And now if I have an assistant, I'll go on to this screen to enter the assistant's qualifications. So I'm going to click there. So let me scroll up. So now you see that there's a 1 here, meaning that I've entered 1 assistant in my staff roster. So you do the same procedure here to enter the assistant qualifications and experience. So here I've indicated that my assistant has a CDA, so I've already inserted 1, and my assistant has earned 23 points. The other section talks about teaching certification, the family development credential, and at least 3 years experience. So let's say my assistant does have at least 3 years of experience teaching. So I'm going to edit and change the 0 to a 1, update to save. So now my assistant has earned 29 points. Let me see if there are any questions about inserting qualifications and experience information before I go on. Okay, so we have a question for the teaching experience section. What types of proof would you upload to indicate the teaching experience of 3 years? So providers and assistant providers should all have accounts on Aspire where they're collecting all of your experience information. So in Aspire you're able to indicate your career history, right? So the programs that you worked with and the number of years that you worked with those programs or in those settings. And then you also submit your resumes to Aspire. So Aspire is able to collect all of the history, your history providing care or teaching young children will be in Aspire. So we use the information from Aspire to know whether or not you meet this standard of teaching for at least 3 years. So it's really based on your professional profile in Aspire. So you want to be sure that your Aspire account accurately reflects your teaching or providing care experience, because that's the information that we use. And your employment records, your resumes, that's how Aspire verifies that information. So I hope that answered the question. There are no more questions about qualifications and experience. I'll go on to retention. So now I click retention to move to the next screen. Again, still within qualifications and experience. Okay. So to calculate the retention, we use the provider open date that you entered on the first page. So under site information, there was that date when I talked about when you first started working in this business, providing care in your home. That's the date we want to know about, because that's the date that we use to calculate the retention, whether or not you've been continuously providing care for 5 or more years. So you see here that this provider has earned the retention points based on the date that was input into the system. And then the last screen on the qualifications and experience that you want to go to is the qualification summary. Now this is a summary of the points that you've earned in this category. So here you see that I have one provider and one assistant. The provider earned 52 points. The assistant earned 29 points. When we talk about averaging the points, this is really more so for centers or programs with multiple staff. But here, because there's only one provider and one assistant, there's no need to average. So instead we sum those points and then we add the retention points last, and you see that the provider has earned 93 points in qualifications and experience. Okay. Let's see if there are any questions about that. So then we're now done with qualifications and experience, so I'll go to the next screen. So this screen asks about groups, and we understand that you provide care for all of your children, so they're all sort of one group. But just for the system, we do need to input at least one group. So you can put all children or anything you like here. It's just a formality. And then you can note the number of children that you provide care for. So 8. You see age group is generic. It's always family child care. And then you add the group. So then I go to the next screen. So this screen lets me start a group self-study using the environment rating scale. So hopefully you were able to take advantage of some free training on the environment rating scale through Quality Stars New York, and you've decided to conduct a self-study using the FICRS, the Family Child Care Environment Rating Scale. If you choose to do a self-study using the FICRS, you can earn 8 points in Quality Stars New York. It's optional if you want to meet that standard, but we do encourage everyone to become familiar with the tool and to do a self-study using the tool. So let's say you went ahead and you went to the training and you did your own self-assessment using the FICRS. So here you want to select the group that you just created, so again all children, and then we're going to select the rating scale, which is FICRS for Family Child Care. That should automatically lead us into the entry page. This is where you would put in the scores, so how you scored yourself on the various subscales of the tool. So again, you would only do this if you did a self-assessment using the FICRS. So most likely, if you did a self-assessment, you use the paper form at the back of the scale to make note of your scores. So you would just copy those scores here into the online system. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and enter a few scores so you get a sense of how this works. Oh, so I got an error message because I entered an 8, but my score has to be between 0 and 7. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that. Another error message. So you see that as I input the score for each item, the calculation here changes in the gray box. This is the good thing about doing this in the portal, is that the portal automatically calculates the score for you, so you can't do the math wrong. So that's helpful because it can be tricky to score the figures. But we do ask that you verify the number that the system has generated for you. So you would just copy the number that you see in the grayed out box in this white box. Okay. And I'll go ahead and do another subscale. So again, I have to enter the scores that I see in the gray box. And here, you don't have to input all of the scores at once. You can, input some and then save it and come back to it. So I'll do one more section and show you how we can come back into it and edit it at a later time. So let's say that's the last subscale, listening and talking, that I want to input today. So then I scroll down to the end of the form, and I do have to input the total score that I've earned so far and the average score or rating that I've also earned so far. So again, just copy the number that you see in the grayed out box and save the group self-assessment. Okay, so now you see that the self-study has been saved. This is the group, all children. I use the figures. It says who completed it, the date, and the score. So let's say it's the next day and I want to go back into it and add more scores. So I click View Edit. And I find the place where I left off and I can input more scores. And so again, I have to put in my total score for that subscale, 40, and the rating or the average. Now go ahead and just complete the form. You'll see that the last subscale, parents, is missing. We're not currently using that subscale in Quality Stars New York. Of course, if you've completed that, that's great, but you don't have to enter that information here in the portal. So let's say I finished entering my scores and now I go to save. I should get an error message because I did not update my total score, which has now changed. It used to be 57, but now it's 143 because I've entered more scores. And my rating has also changed. So you want to be sure to update that information. And now we should be able to save. And I'm going to click it again to make sure it's working. Okay, so now it takes us back to this page, and it shows that the score has changed and it's saved. Okay, let me see if there are any questions about the Ficker self-study in Quality Stars New York. Okay, I don't see any questions about the Fickers, so I'll go on. So the next screen takes us to the checklist. So this is where you would indicate what standards you meet, and you're able to upload the documentation to prove that you're meeting that standard. So the first thing you want to do, before I even go into it, I'll also point you to the resource guide. This is a good way to get some more information about the standard. If there are any clarifying notes, we'll post them there. If you have any questions about the documentation that we asked for, if you need samples of some things, you can find some more information about the standards using the resource guide. You would just click on that and it would take you to the resource guide. You can also access the resource guide from the home page of the website. And I can show you how to do that at the end of the webinar. So if you're ready to go into the checklist, you would select QSNY, and this should take you right into the checklist. Okay. I do recommend that before starting the checklist on the portal that you go through the paper version and that you highlight or indicate exactly what standard you're meeting, and also highlight or indicate what documentation you need, and then save those files on your computer. I think the more organized you are before starting the checklist on the portal, the easier this process is going to be for you. So once you're in the checklist, you'll see that there are 3 separate checklists. One for learning environment, family engagement, and management and leadership. Okay, we've already completed the qualifications and experience category, so that's not listed here. So then you see the number of points that you've earned in the checklist so far. So again, you can do this little by little. So you can go in one day and work on the learning environment, see the number of points that you've earned, save it, and then come back another day to work on another section or another standard. Because the system will show you the last updated date, and it'll also show you the status. So in progress, not started, or submitted once you're finally done. So here you see that I've already started the learning environment checklist. I haven't started family engagement, and I did start management and leadership. Let's go into family engagement. So you can go into any one in any order that you want, and I'll show you how to start a checklist. Okay, so now I'm in family engagement, and I know that because down here the title says family engagement not started. So this is where you always know what checklist you're in. Okay, and then the number of points is 0, so I haven't generated any points yet. So when you start a checklist, the first thing you want to do is click Save. This starts the system. It makes it go, and it then allows you to add files to it. And even along the way, you always want to be saving your work, because we know that these systems time out, and we don't want you to lose anything. So just keep saving. After you work on one standard, make sure you save and then go on to the next one. So by clicking Save, what that does, it then allows me to add files. So let's just walk through the structure of this. So on the very left, we have the subcategory, as we call it, name, and the standard code. So here we're in communication and C1, meaning the first standard in the communication subcategory. Then the indicator is really the standard language. So this is what we're saying that you meet. And then don't worry about this little box right here. This is just the system. This is automatically done for you. And then the next column is the number of points that you can earn, and then sources of evidence. So this is the documentation that you would submit. And then the last column is a checkbox that you would check. This is how you indicate that you deserve these points. Okay. So let's say that I meet C2. I communicate with families in a comprehensive written format about the program's history, philosophy, admissions policies or procedures, applicable regulations, and parent involvement opportunities. This standard is really talking about having sort of a parent handbook, so a place where parents can go to get this comprehensive information about the care that you provide. Some of you might have this in a series of handouts, which is fine. We just want to see the various handouts that you provide. Or if you have this on your website, then you can print out the website content. So again, we just want to see that parents have a place to go to get this comprehensive information about your program. So let's say I have a parent handbook, so I want to upload that document. So the first thing I'll do is click Add Files, so I can locate that file and add it to the standard. And you notice that there's an Add Files under each source of evidence. So Parent Handbook, and then there's Add Files. Handouts, Add Files. Website postings, Add Files. So you want to be sure that you're selecting the correct Add Files for that particular type of documentation. So because I want to add my Parent Handbook, I'm going to click the Add Files under Parent Handbook. So by clicking Add Files, that opens my Documents library. It's always at the top of the screen. Okay, so you always have to scroll up to view it. So here you see that now I'm able to see my Documents library. This is a place where I'm able to add all of my files and then link those files to particular standards. And it's really helpful that up here it reminds you the standard that you're in and the documentation that you're looking to add. So this is a reminder that I'm looking for my Parent Handbook for C2. So right now there are no documents in my library, so I need to add new. So I click on that. And now I'm able to name the file that I'm adding. So here you're naming it in the portal. And this is most important, how you name it here in the actual checklist, because this allows us to know which standard or which document of the standard you're saying that you meet. And it's most helpful if it's very clear. You know, you don't want us to have to wonder, you know, oh, what standard does this document go with? Which source of which evidence are they trying to submit, or where are we looking to find the information? So you want to be as clear as possible. And so first you put in the standard code. So again, just repeating what you see up here, right? So C2 Parent Handbook. You can always just copy what you see up here. Now, of course, if there's a particular page in the Parent Handbook that you want us to look at, then you would also put in page number. So again, being very, very clear about where we can find the information that you're meeting the standard. You don't want us to have to guess, because if we guess wrong, then you might not get the point. So for this one, I just need to input my entire Parent Handbook, so I do that, and then I select the folder. So I'm in the Family Engagement Checklist. Again, I can look down here, if you see my mouse, family engagement, and then I click browse to find the file on my computer. So you'd want to go into your system and find where you saved it. So I have saved mine. So I'm going to open my folder. So I've created a whole new folder for the portal, and I've put copies of my files here. I suggest that you do that because again you want to be as organized as possible. So here you see I've actually created a folder for each of the main categories. So family engagement, this should be learning environment, management and leadership. And then within each main category I've also created subfolders for the subcategories. Again, trying to be as clear as possible. So communications, family involvement, transition. So I know that I'm looking for my parent handbook to meet communications too, so I'm going to go into that folder and there it is, and I've even saved it as clearly as possible. Now this step isn't that important. How you save it on your physical computer is not as important as how you name it in the actual checklist. So I'm going to select the file and then I click open to upload it, and then I click insert to add it to the documents library. And there it is. My parent handbook for C2, the file name. This little check mark means that I now want to link the file that I just uploaded to my documents library to this standard that's listed up here. Okay, so even though you've added the file to your documents library, that does not mean that it's actually linked to the standard. In order to link it, you must click Save. Again, always clicking Save wherever you see it is really helpful. So now that I've clicked Save, my documents library has disappeared, but it will appear again, so don't get concerned about that. But what you want to do is then go back to the standard that you were working in, which is C2, and you want to be sure that now your evidence is listed here. So this is how I know that in fact my parent handbook is linked to the correct documentation and the correct standard. But you're not done yet because you haven't generated the points for adding the documentation. In order to generate the points, the 8 points for meeting the standard, you must click on the very right checkbox, and now you must save the checklist. So you see here points 0. When I save the checklist now, I should generate 8 points. Okay, well, it says 12 points because I had something else checked already in this section. Okay, but you see here that by clicking Save, I did generate the points. Okay, let's see if there are any questions about adding documents to the library and linking them to standards. Okay, we do have a question about the Vickers. So if you have questions about doing a self-assessment using the Vickers, I'd encourage you to talk with your quality improvement specialist. They might be able to get you access to some training so that you can complete a self-assessment using the Vickers. Okay. And of course, if you have more questions about that, you can always contact me at the Quality Stars New York office as well. There's another question about standards that ask if I take care of infants. Okay, so I'll go back to that standard. So standard C1 talks about provider communicates with parents of infants in writing on a daily basis about caregiving routines such as feeding, sleeping, and diapering, toileting. So there are a number of standards that are very specific to the types of children that you take care of. So if you don't take care of infants, then you don't have to worry about this standard. It's really not applicable to you. If you have the paper version of the standards, you see that we do have language in there that talks about, provider takes care of infants, yes, no, if no, skip and move to the next section. So you're doing the same thing here. You're skipping any standards that don't apply to you. We have some standards that talk about children whose home language is not English. If you don't take care of children whose home language is not English, then again you would skip those standards. I'm working to edit the language here so that it's clearer that you should be skipping these standards, but for now, again, I think it's really important that you look at the paper version of the standards first before you start to work on the online portal. Think about the portal as just a place to upload documents and generate points. It's not a place to find particular guidance about the standards. Okay, for that, I'd refer you to the paper version of the standards or your quality improvement specialist. Okay, I'll go through the exercise of adding another file so we can see it again. So now I want to go to Management and Leadership. Again, you can just go from checklist to checklist. So I'll click on Management and Leadership. Okay, and so now I want to add files for, let's say, FAS3. Provider has a current year operating budget showing revenues and expenses. So I want to put my budget in, so I click Add Files. So this should open my documents library. So you see my other document, my parent handbook, is still sitting there because I've added it, so it doesn't disappear from the library. But now I have to add a new file. So I click Add New. Okay. And now I can name my file, so FAS3, again, always referencing what's up here. You just copy that language and that's easy enough. So FAS3 budget. Now I'm in the Management and Leadership folder. So I want to select that folder and I click Browse to find the file. So now I go into my Management and Leadership folder. I'm looking for FAS, so Financial Accountability and Sustainability. I open that and there's my budget already named for me, just sitting there waiting to be uploaded. So I click Open and then Insert to add it to the Documents library. And there it is. So now it's in my library. But again, in order to make the connection between this document that I just uploaded and this standard that I want to meet, I have to save. I have to save the connection. Okay, I want to be sure that it's checked, meaning it's linking to this standard, FAS3, and then I want to save that connection. So now when I go back into the checklist, I should see it there at FAS3 under budget. There's my file. And you can actually click on the file and you should be able to generate the file so you can actually see what you've added. Let's see if this works. Sometimes it gives us some problem, but let's see. Okay. I'm not going to search for the application to open this, but that's the idea, that you can double check if you need to. But it is linked to the standard, and it's in your documents library. But of course, I haven't earned the 3 points for having my budget yet. I have not earned those points because I did not check the box to indicate that I meet the standard. We're working on getting it so that when you add a file here, this automatically checks the box for you, but for now you do have to check that box so that you get your points. So once I check the box, I can then scroll up and save my checklist. So I've now earned the 3 points for having my budget. Okay, so you can continue to upload files and save the checklist over time. And once you're done with the checklist, you would go to the next section. So I'll click on Next. Okay. And this is the summary of the points that you've earned in the self-study. Let me just see if there are any questions about uploading files again. I don't see any, so let's move on. So this is the place where you get a sense of the number of points that you've earned in each of the components. So learning environment, family engagement, qualifications and experience, management and leadership. Also here you see the types of children that you indicated that you serve, and the number of points that you are eligible for serving those populations. But what's most important is the total points at the very top here. And then you want to go to your chart and see how you would be rated based on the number of points that you've earned. So if you've earned 115 points, you now fall in the star 2 level, so you might be rated at a star 2. Again, this is all unofficial. This is just to give you a sense of the number of points you might earn in Quality Stars New York. It's very likely that the number of points that you officially earn after we review all of your documents and after we get all of your verified information from Aspire will differ. But the point is that you're getting some information here, so you're not submitting to us blindly. So hopefully this is helpful to you all. And then once you've viewed this, you can then go on to view your self-study report, which is a PDF of everything that you've just submitted, and you can save that to your computer. And you can generate this report as many times as you want. You can do it anytime you change the checklist. You can select self-study report and you can save it if you want to see your progress over time. So again, it's just the information that you've entered. Your figures report, if you did one, it's also there. And then the checklists are there. Okay. And it shows you which standards you said you met. Let me scroll down so we can see one that we did together. So we did family engagement. So there it is. There's parent handbook. It's checked, so we said we met it. And there's even the file. And you are able to click on this file and view what you submitted. And so this is your self-study report. And at the very end, it also has all of your points and that same chart that we just saw that shows you your star level. Potential star level, I should say. This is a very long document, as you all can see. Okay, so this is a chart that we're interested in. Right, and then once we're done viewing that, you can return to the application. And if you're ready to submit, we ask that you only submit once. You're only able to submit once. So please be sure that you're ready to submit, and then you can go to submit. Once you submit, you will receive an email confirmation, and that's how you know that we have received your self-study report. Okay, and then you click Submit Self-Study for approval. Once you submit, you cannot make edits to the self-study. For some reason, if something happened and you do need to unlock it and make a change, you have to contact our office, and then we can talk with you and help you do that if needed. And so this is how you complete a self-study using the online portal. I hope this webinar was helpful. Of course, contact us, contact me or Ariel Davis. If you have any questions about using the portal, contact your quality improvement specialist if you have questions about the standards. We're all here to help you. Let me see if there are any last questions before we leave for the night. So there's a question here about the checklist. If you use a file like the parent handbook more than once for evidence, do you have to rename it or upload it again? Yes, unfortunately you do. So we ask that you upload the file again and again and again as many times as you need to, and that you rename it, because anytime you name it, you're naming it with the specific standard code, and you're also naming it. And something like the parent handbook, what you'd also want to do is when you're naming it, put the page number or a section of it or something so that we know exactly what to look for. If you have a policy about closures, that you don't operate when the public schools are closed or something like that, and that's in your parent handbook on page 5, you want to name it in the checklist as C2 parent handbook page 5. So you do have to re-upload files every time. Okay, that's the last question that I see. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll just show you again how to access the resource guide from the website. Okay, so on the very home page, there's the guide to the standards, and you can explore the standards here. And you will go into Standards for Family-Based Programs. And then we have it broken down by category. So let's say you had a question about family engagement, a standard there. You see that we have 6 resources for communication, so you can view the standards. And then you can go into a particular standard. And so for the documentation, we do provide some clarification notes about what we're expecting to find if you're submitting that documentation. Okay, so that's hopefully very helpful to you, so you know exactly what to submit to us. And then if there are some additional resources, we name them here. There's also a glossary of terms, and sometimes there are general resources that you can also access. We'll be adding a lot more to this over the next few years, but for now we do hope that some of this is helpful, particularly the notes about the documentation. So if there are no more questions, let me thank you all for your attention. I do hope this was helpful. We will be hosting one more Family Portal webinar next Monday at 7 o'clock if you'd like to join us again. But again, the video of tonight's webinar will also be available through the website. So thank you all again. If you have any questions, contact us, and I wish you the best of luck in your self-study process. Have a good night.